the United States of America, celebrating 250th anniversary. Woohoo! Happy birthday, America! However, I've been talking to people of all political stripes, various political stripes, I should say, and all various backgrounds, socioeconomic, ethnicity, cultural, generational. And here's something I find an overall theme that many have shared with me. They're asking the difficult questions about the state of America. Questions about democracy, freedom, race relations, its identity on a global stage, the political divisions that we see increasing, and whether this country is still living up to its ideals it profounds to celebrate. The question that remains to be seen is this: is America still moving closer towards its founding promise, what Ronald Reagan once called a shining city upon a hill? Or are we witnessing a country retreating from its principles and showing signs of a nation in decline? These are good questions. Throughout this series, I'll speak with voices from different political, cultural, and spiritual perspectives about the state of America and where the country may be heading next. To begin this conversation, I am joined by Tameko Patterson. She's the former chair of the Monroe County Democratic Party. She's a civic leader, a corporate executive whose work spans public service, nonprofit leadership, and community advocacy. Professionally, Ms. Tameko serves as the head of site projects at Sanofi in Swiftwater, Pennsylvania, where she leads complex initiatives and globally dispersed teams with more than 2 decades of leadership experience. She holds a master's degree in computer science and in both PMI and IBM certified project manager. Now, beyond her professional accomplishments, Tameko has become a respected voice throughout the region on issues involving civic engagement, education, leadership, and community empowerment. In addition to once leading the Monroe County Democratic Party, she serves as the president of the National Council of Negro Women of Pennsylvania State Coalition and sits on several community and educational boards. On this episode, we're going to discuss the current state of the Democratic Party, nationally and locally, the challenges Democrats face heading into the midterm elections, generational and ideological divisions reshaping American politics, and concerns many Americans have on the direction of the country. We'll also reflect on the celebrations of Juneteenth and what it means for America celebrating its 250th anniversary of independence at a time when many citizens feel the nation stands at a crossroads between progress and retreat. A little side note for those watching the video version of this podcast. You're going to see my guest, Tameko, camera ready, looking like the executive that she is. But then you're going to see me, an unshaven face. I look like I barely survived a work week. That's because trying to coordinate our schedules was a task in itself. So when I got the call that she's ready and available to talk, there was no time to prep because this conversation was too important to discuss. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Kuka for Politics. Let's dive in some thoughtful and engaging conversation while learning something together. What's up, good people? Michael here, host of the political podcast, Kuka for Politics. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Thank you for just being present. Today we have my guest, Tameko Patterson. Introduction about her bio. She's on her way out as far as serving her term as Monroe County Democratic Party chair. That's a role that is very busy, daunting at moments, and I want to get her perspective not only on being chair, on leadership style, but also her thoughts on the party itself, locally as well as nationally. Tameko, welcome to another episode of Kuka for Politics. Stepping away in a few weeks. By the time of this recording, you will probably be out by then. You served for 4 years. What's your takeaway? What's your accomplishments, or would you say your challenges of being in that role?
So thank you, Michael, for having me. So actually, I have been the chair for 3.5 years. Took over someone else's term who had to step down. It's a very interesting ride, I'll say. and just shared with the rest of the members last week that it's a bittersweet moment. It has been, as you mentioned, very daunting. It's been challenging. And since it was a position that I didn't actually seek in the beginning, I thought that I was going to be able to come in with my corporate experience and be able to right the ship. I was surprised that I wasn't able to do that. Again, I shared last week that I was very disappointed that I was not able to bring the Monroe County Democratic Party back together. There was not just a breakage, but a complete fracture in the party, and from differing political views, even within Democrats. I think it goes back to, Bernieism, right? We have a lot of members who jumped on the Bernie Sanders bandwagon, and they continue that thought pattern. Then you have older Democrats that are focused on areas that don't align with the Bernie Sanders way. And so I think it just got to a breaking point in the party, again, not just locally, but nationally. And it really caused a lot of trust issues. It actually hurt people from getting elected, Democrats from getting elected. So with my superwoman cape on, thinking that I can bring all this experience that I have and help to reshape the organization, and it didn't go so well.
Based on your bio with your extensive roles in the community, you being Wonder Woman, you could not bring the coalition amongst the members because of the different belief systems?
Yeah, there's a few different things. So this is one thing I've seen in other organizations, including corporate America, right? There's a generational difference. And we didn't experience it so much like when you and I were growing up, but I'm seeing it a lot now. The Gen Z, they have their own opinions. They are unapologetic. And then when you bring the Gen Z with the Gen X and the baby boomers, it's a bad combination. And again, I've seen it in so many different arenas, and I think that's a big part of it. So as we know, the Gen Zers and even some of the millennials, follow Bernie Sanders, but Gen Xers and the boomers, not so much. Me not thinking about that generational gap really, put me behind the 8 ball, and I lost a lot of time, a lot of momentum. It just didn't work out the way I'd hoped.
So I'm part of that Gen X, and I was a Bernie fan back in 2016. Granted, Secretary Hillary Clinton won, and you just fell in line because of the ideals of the Democratic Party. And it sounds to me you're saying that even at the end of the day, after 2016, 2020, 2024, there are still those begrudging that the party did not move in that progressive way that Bernie wanted.
Absolutely.
Were you able to include some of the Gen Zs or into the fold to see if they would be able to, bring their message or talk about the process that, things change happens, but it's slow based on, so many variables?
My leadership style across, the board is inclusive leadership, right? And I try to value everyone's opinions, perspectives, backgrounds, ideals. So I did try to bring everybody together. One thing I try to explain to people, I'll just say the Gen Xers and the baby boomers, we don't know everything. We knew a lot. We did know a lot, but the world has changed so much, especially when it comes to technology and politics and how technology impacts politics and, all this other stuff, right? So there's a lot that we don't know, and we really need to take the time to listen to, the younger generation. And as I mentioned before, they are unapologetic. Like I know a lot of, especially Gen Zs, I'm not working in an office 4 days a week or 5 days a week. They will tell you, I will not take a job that wants me to come in every day. Now, we, on the other hand, right, this is what we've grown up with. This is what we saw our parents do. So it's our expectation. We don't think anything differently. I do try to include all walks of life, all opinions, and I try to make myself approachable. The answer to your question is yes, I did try to include them, seek their ideas, because, how do you reach people you don't really know unless you have the people who know them that can help you reach, right? So
history repeats itself, because I remember watching movies as well as documentaries that talked about even in the peak of the civil rights movement, you had Dr. King and his movement, then you had
Malcolm X,
but you also had the late congressman, I just forgot his name. He was walking on the bridge.
Oh, good trouble. And now because you're saying, and I can't remember his name right now, it's terrible. We should both be fired.
Just drawing a blank. but
John Lewis.
there we go.
Okay.
John Lewis, the great John Lewis. The fact that there was also factions. So I see that we continuation of that. But because of these factions, do you think under the current administration, where we're seeing rights and liberties being taken away, laws being in place, do you see, even though with all that difference of opinion, how the party should move forward or how the government should move forward, are you seeing unity that, okay, even though I may disagree with you or the leadership or the establishment, the main goal is to, are you seeing that?
No.
No.
I'm not seeing it at the local level. I'm not seeing it at the national level. It's not all generational, but it's, certain people think they know more than others. We've seen the infighting within the party, again, at all levels. Part of the problem is that a lot of Democrats are expecting the Democratic Party to do more to fight against Elmer J. Fudd and his administration, and they're not. And so it becomes very frustrating. My husband in particular, he switched parties. He switched from Democrat to independent because he did not feel like the Democratic Party was doing enough. Even though I explained to him that he was going to lose his ability to vote in the primary, he didn't care, right? He did not want to be affiliated with either party. In his opinion, is not doing enough for the country.
I'm finding that too, as I talk to voters, there are people who are switching parties, either Republican to Democrat, Democrat to independent. Really? I have not encountered anyone that says I'm a Democrat going to the Republican, for that matter. And I think, yes, even though you explain to them, they lose out on the being able to vote in the primary. They'll vote in a general election, even though they lean Democrat. I had my doctor friend, he said to me, I can't believe gas prices. I said, well, you voted for him. I don't want to hear it. You need to give me money to offset my gas,
Right.
Do you finding that more people are like, you know what, this is not what I thought?
I know a few people personally, especially colleagues. I can say I don't have too many friends that are Republicans, but some of my colleagues are. My boss, 2 years ago during the election, he actually asked me who I voted for, which I thought was an odd question because I don't like talking about politics at work. But anyway, and I said, well, who did you vote for? He said, well, I voted for Donald Trump. And I said, are you kidding me? He goes, well, I voted for Donald Trump because Kamala Harris couldn't win. I said, of course she can't win if you don't vote for her. People are definitely having buyer's remorse. I realize sometimes I say things and people don't know what I'm talking about. You may know who Elmer J. Fudd is.
Yes.
Okay, so people, just in case people don't know, Elmer J. Fudd was a cartoon character from Bugs Bunny, and he would walk around saying, my name is Elmer J. Fudd, I own a mansion and a yacht. And that reminds me of Donald Trump all day.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many names about him. Orange Man. I mean, I still think he's the dumbest person on earth. But then I'm reminded that he's not really the dumbest person. He's just vulnerable because there's other people like Stephen Miller, the ones who are really pushing the buttons, but he's not really thinking. He's not even there. Most of the time he's sleeping. Even so, and they're trying to say, no, he's reflecting. No, he's sleeping. Do you think the Democrats have a messaging problem? I mean, I think about all the accomplishments made under the Democratic leadership, whether it be in the White House or even in Congress. But why do you think we have a messaging problem?
Messaging problem, it's a communication problem, right? Again, they're not putting the right messages out to the right people. So again, the way you would talk to your grandmother is not the same way you would talk to your son. I don't think they're looking at, how to engage certain people. So I think that's part of the problem. And I think that, again, from the top down, they don't listen to all of the voices. It's people at the top who think that they know everything. And I'll just use the Kamala Harris campaign, for example, right? The whole thing was Black men didn't support Kamala Harris, right? And that went out into the ether. And even Black men who did support Kamala Harris were saying, well, Black men don't support Kamala Harris, so I'm not supposed to support Kamala Harris. That could have been, eradicated in that whole issue. Now, the other note is I really think Elmer J. Fudd did something to rig the election. But in any case, there was definitely a communication problem there. Someone should have explained to Black men who were thinking about not voting for Kamala Harris, why it's necessary. Now, of course, we're all seeing it now, right? I know there are a lot of people kicking themselves right now.
Your vote doesn't matter. No. And I give them examples, and you're actually living it, as far as when you don't vote and thinking your vote doesn't matter which party is in office. Primary elections in Pennsylvania just passed. Other states are going through it too. And then the general election happens in November. What do you think are the best chances for not only local candidates running for state houses and so forth, but also in Congress? What do you think the Democrats, you think they'll be able to accomplish what's needed in order to get them elected by not only Democrats, but independents and maybe some Republicans?
Actually, across the entire country right now, we're seeing the results of the primaries, and Democrats are winning bigly, right? I'll talk about Monroe County, right? Monroe County, Democrats outvoted the Republicans. It was like 59% to 41%. So out of all the voters, 59% were Democrat and 41% were Republicans, which is a really, really big deal. Now, we don't know why, but we can deduce, right? Either Republican, so sick of Republicans, they decided not to vote, right? Which is probably the most likely case. I imagine that there's some Republicans who they don't want to vote for the Republicans, but they also refuse to vote for Democrats. So another reason why they didn't show up. It's a trend across the entire country. It was a trend across the state. So far, we've seen that Democrats are outvoting Republicans. And unless something changes in the White House, which I don't expect to happen, I think that trend is going to continue into November. And I think it's going to help the Democrats tremendously.
Especially with the issues of affordability. You think about how Trump, as who is aka Elmer Fudd, he came in, we're going to lower prices, cost of living is going to go way down, no more wars. And if you think about it, anything he said during the campaign trail in the first and the second term is the complete opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a complete opposite. They're stealing the elections. No, you're planning to steal the elections. Right. Affordability, no, things are going up. And he's actually said it. Now it's on record that he doesn't care about Americans' financial situation, regardless of the cost of living, which is self-inflicted, particularly. I'm hoping, too, that the messaging is resonating with citizens and that they'll think back. On another front, the country's entering its celebration of the 250 years of independence. And it's a young democratic state if you think about other countries, our European allies, Japan, Asia, and so forth like that. But is there much to celebrate when you think about the 250 years where we've come from?
I was saying to someone the other day, it really irks me that he is the president for the semi-quincentennial. It could have been anybody else, but why him? And there is no reason to celebrate. We have gone backwards in the past 2 years. So what are we celebrating? What we could be celebrating, I should say what they could be celebrating is Project 20, the success of Project 2025, because that's what's happening. Everything that they gave us, they wrote the playbook, we saw the playbook, and then I think Democrats, for the most part, believe that they said they were going to try to do what they said they were going to try to do. But Republicans didn't believe, they don't mean that. It's in writing. Like, what do you mean they don't mean it? So I think a lot of people are surprised about that. I think you mentioned the Civil Rights Act being rolled back. I mean, all these things that are happening. I just saw the other day on the news, I think it was in Virginia, where some right-wing organization was marching through the streets with masks on. So there is really nothing to celebrate. He's destroying the White House that we built. Destroying it. And who goes through all this stuff for a 4-year term, right? The work probably won't even be completed in 4 years, which just also leads us to understand that he does intend to stay there for a while.
The amount of money that's being used to fix the ballroom, the amount of money going into wars, but we don't have health care, the amount of money that's being stripped away from public education. There's a purpose for dumbing down, I feel like, the American citizen. That's how I feel. And I'm hoping that will bring people together.
Really scary. It's definitely nothing to celebrate. It's really sad.
It is very sad the way the current political landscape is being shaped out by the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, basically silencing us, people of color, what else they're going after. It's so much to take back. So yes, you're right. And then this recording is coming out during Juneteenth celebration. I just think about how delayed that was after the Civil War concluded. It took another year, and that was purposely done because of harvesting. The plantation owners wanted to continue getting their harvest for the following year and change their business plan, so to speak, at a later time. I believe the Department of Defense and other federal institutions wants to roll back that celebration of Juneteenth or recognition. You form a school board, a sense that I think it was a school board in Tennessee voted to get rid of the teaching of the book and the movie Roots. They're basically wanting to erase any type of achievements that we've made to build this country. As you said, we built the White House, we built the Capitol.
Right.
Do you see a trend in this is happening locally? Are you seeing local candidates on the Republican side, either in school board, saying, we need to change the curriculum and so forth? Any of that rhetoric going on in Pennsylvania, do you know?
Fortunately, not in Monroe County. I haven't heard about that in Pennsylvania at all. I mean, I'm sure it's happening somewhere, but I haven't heard about that. It'll never happen in Philadelphia. Yeah, fortunately, I haven't heard about any of that. So,
Well, he tried to, as you remember, there was a whole big news thing early in the year, Black History Month.
oh yeah,
And
yeah.
then in Philadelphia, he had one of the museums take down. They fought it, and they was able to reinstall it
Right.
back, like a few days later. But think
Right.
about, this goes to our earlier point, all the money that's being wasted now by this administration to remove progress.
Right.
The amount of money that it's going to take and time, not only personnel, hire talented federal workers to do the job that needs to be done, but the money being spent to replace and return things back to some normalcy. I don't know if we'll have a republic in a few years, but just think about all that time and money being wasted. Moving on. You say the chances of Democratic candidates in locally and nationally are as a good start. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll circle back maybe midsummer and talk about things going forward, as well as maybe coming close to the fall elections. Only time will tell. As the next crop of leadership comes in within the Democratic Party, do you see potential candidates who are going to take on the baton after you leave, along with the executive leadership?
You mean locally? I'm pleasantly surprised. We do have several candidates for all of the positions. So the positions are chair, vice chair, recording secretary, corresponding secretary, and treasurer. We do have at least 2 candidates for each one of those positions. Now, I've been involved locally with the party for a little over a decade now. And so I've seen 2 elections, and it wasn't that, there weren't that many people running, especially for all the positions. So that it's a good sign. That means more people want to be involved and engaged and help to direct the party. I hope that we continue to move in an upward trajectory and not go backwards or have people try to turn the party completely around, because then that won't work, right? Change is hard. It's going to be hard enough having a new leadership, but then when the new leadership comes in and they try to change too many things, then, the natives are going to get a little restless, and then there'll be, some issues from that. But I'm happy to see people are interested.
And that's key. I mean, even though we may have difference of opinions based on our walks of life, hopefully everyone rallies together to elect and bring in others to move the party forward, as well as locally and nationally, because that's a big thing. Your time is limited, and I have so many more questions to ask you. That's why I said you have an open invitation to come back to another episode, which you have done in the past. One final thing is this. I think about, was it in 2020? Just think about that. 6 years ago, May 25th, George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, and then which unleashed the phenomenon as a Black Lives Matter, not only locally, but globally. Where do you see race relations today? Thinking that particular protest was going to bring some healing, or at least moving forward. Do you see us moving in any direction, or another setback, as we said, talked about the 250 years of this country?
I think there are more people who have opened up their eyes to the structural and systemic racism in our country. And it's not just racism, just discrimination in general. We saw, and not to negate the George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery or anyone else who was killed, especially during the COVID days. If you look at what happened to Alex Preddy and Renee Good, it's gotten to the point where it's not even a race thing anymore, right? Necessarily. It's a power struggle, and anybody who goes against the powers that be are immediately eliminated, especially if you're supporting the Blacks and the Jews and the queers, right? Like, if you're supporting those people, you're automatically an outcast and a target. I don't think that race relations are getting worse. I think that there's a more understanding, more sympathy across the nation. There's still a lot of work to be done, and if we don't come together as a country, as a nation, as people, regardless of race, creed, color, sexual orientation. We will all be defeated. We have to understand our power. And I'll just say this as a side note, and I think I've mentioned this to you maybe in the last time I came on your show, but the word minority, right? I have an issue with that word. The root word of minority is minor. So I tell people all the time, don't call me a minority. I'm not a minority. I'm a person of color. And as of the 2020 census, there are more people of color in this country than there are not, right? And so we are now, if you look at the entire population of Black and Hispanic and, people of color, we are the global majority. So we are now, I tell people, I'm a person of the global majority. There are way more of us than there are of them. So that's one of the reasons why they want to get rid of abortions. It's not about us. It's about there's not enough white babies being born. So they want to get rid of abortions, but we outnumber them. Imagine if we just came together.
Imagine that if you take the labels away, and I think labels is what defines us, but it also categorizes us from working together. And you're so right. That's the reason why the immigration policy, it's a race-based policy. And you're right about the incidents that took place early this year in Minnesota brought a lot of Americans together. They were not just seeing race or gender or sexual orientation. They're like, wait, that's a fellow citizen. Why are you doing that? And even if you disagree, why is the federal government taking out individuals in such a way?
Right.
And so that...
Well, it wasn't the federal government, remember, right?
Well,
these deputies.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Trained.
Yes.
For that matter. You're right about that. There's so many things moving forward. Tameko, again, I have so many other topics I wanted to address, but I know time is limited. So again, open invitation to another episode of Cuckoo for Politics. And again, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for my closing thoughts.
Thank you.
Let me first say thank you for listening, especially those who are tuning in for the very first time. I truly appreciate your time and support. I hope that you enjoyed today's discussion and that you subscribe to this podcast that can be found on Apple, Spotify, or the YouTube channel of Cuckoo for Politics. If you'd like to share feedback, please do so. You can reach me at cuckooforpoliticsfeedback@gmail.com or leave a comment on a platform you listen or watch. Again, thanks to my guest, Tameko Patterson, for joining me in this insightful conversation. She was honest about her leadership. Despite her extensive corporate management experience, leading large teams and in major projects, she's discovered that leading a political party and a diverse coalition of people is an entirely different challenge. Politics is personal. Politics is emotional. And within today's Democratic Party, there are real ideological and generational divides. She spoke about the continuous tensions between the progressive movement, energized by Bernie Sanders, and the more established wing of the Democratic Party. At the same time, Democrats are finding themselves challenging or navigating a growing generational gap between baby boomers, Generation Z, millennials, all shaped by vastly different economic realities and social experiences. Those differing priorities can make any party unity difficult. Be curious to see if the Republicans have that same issue. Yet, ironically, the current political climate may also be a plus, creating new opportunities for Democrats, locally and nationally. Think about it. Concerns about the direction of the country, democratic institutions, and political extremism seems to be energizing many voters who may have once been disengaged. Our conversation also arrived at a larger question facing America as the nation approaches its 250th anniversary. Think about it. For some Americans, this milestone may be a proud celebration of freedom and democracy, and for others, it's becoming a moment of reflection and discomfort. Reports that some musical artists decline invitations connected to the anniversary celebration reflect a broader feeling among critics that they may not feel this country is worth celebrating. In their view, the country is retreating from its democratic principles. Others may argue that Donald Trump has infused himself so much and his movement that he has increasingly turned patriotism into something centered around his personality and his grievances rather than national unity. At the same time, America is wrestling with questions of race, identity, immigration, and belonging. There's fear of demographic and cultural change remains a powerful political force. Yet history also shows that moments of division can produce unexpected unity. Years ago, the murder of George Floyd sparked a multiracial movement demanding accountability and justice. Today's concerns surrounding aggressive of immigration tactics and the treatment of both immigrants and American citizens are again bringing people together from different political backgrounds and ethnicities who believe the country must do better. Perhaps this is the real meaning behind Juneteenth and America's 250th anniversary. Democracy is never finished and freedom is not guaranteed. Every generation must decide whether this country moves forward or backward, whether it chooses fear or inclusion, division or community. This is what ponders Americans. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Michael, host of the political podcast, Kuka for Politics. Thanks for tuning in. I ask you to stay informed, stay engaged, and until the next episode, stay blessed.